So let's deal with this close guard from the top. So we're gonna start from the basic fundamentals from close guard and work our way up from there, okay? So the close guard is a really bad place for me to be in, right? It's probably, as far as guards go, it's probably one of the most dangerous guards. And the reason why, it may not seem like it because it's like the most basic guard, but the problem is I don't have any offense that I can do from this position. There's a couple little chokes and maybe like wrist locks and stuff if I'm really good, like the stuff that black belts do to like blue belts and stuff. It's not stuff that works at any high level. It's really just trickery stuff, but it's not stuff you can rely on. I don't want to start reaching into Michelle's lapels and start trying to choke and stuff like that. The moment my elbows get past Michelle's hip line, my arms are in danger. If I start reaching for her to try and submit, if she opens up and swings out, like I'm in an arm bar and I'm gonna be tapping, right, very quickly. So it's not worth it to start reaching up to like high up on people's lapels and stuff like that. For the most part, you want to try to keep your elbows in the hip line, below the hip line as much as possible. We're going to kind of break that rule a little bit tonight, but as a general rule, don't start reaching up high in up to people's lapels or necks or anything like that. It's just not a good idea, okay? But I can't really do anything until I get her legs open and start to pass. Once I start to pass and get her legs unlocked and things like that, then maybe I can find submissions and stuff like that. But for now, I'm in a pretty bad spot. I have to get her legs open. Okay, but the main thing for me is I have to control my posture, all right? So posture means a lot of different things. When we're talking about posture in real life, we're talking about like someone that has good posture is like a Zach or somebody that like has really good like straight back, shoulders back, like, you know, stands up tall and all that, right? That's good posture. That's what we consider to be good posture. I have terrible posture in real life. I'm a hunchback, but like that's what good posture is that people think about. But what posture really means in jiu-jitsu is having control of where I am in space, okay? If I have good posture, it means I'm in control of where I am, okay? My posture could be here, my posture could be here, my posture could be a number of different places, but as long as I'm the one that's in control of it, that's what having good posture means, okay? So Michelle's trying to break my posture. She's trying to get control of that all the time. She wants me close to her so that I can attack. Generally inside the close guard, I don't want to be leaning back too far because the moment I start leaning back, that's when hip bump opportunities come up. The last sweep that we just did in the warm-up, anytime somebody is leaning back at all, that's the perfect time to go for a hip bump, okay? So if you ever catch somebody who's trying to pull away for whatever reason, that's when you're gonna sit up and try to take them over the side, all right? So it's important for me to not be in that position, but I also have to make sure that my head isn't too close to Michelle's, okay? Because then she's gonna be able to get the grip she wants for submissions and stuff like that. So she's gonna be trying to pull in with her legs and break me down to a position like this. The main reason why this position is so terrible for you on top isn't just because there's submission opportunities and stuff like that for Michelle, which there are, and even sweeps. But the reason why it's so bad is because my hips are so far away from my feet that all of my weight is in front of my knees, all right? So if I were to sit here and not use my hands, right, if I didn't have hands or whatever, if I was to try to sit up, it's impossible for me to sit up in this position. I can't bring my weight back. There's no way for me to sit back on my heels and get control of my own posture. The only way I can do it is by pushing off the mat. And when I push off the mat, I'm giving her opportunities for Kimuras, like overhook control, like all sorts of stuff that is not good for me, right? And then as we did with like the Bravo stuff and the earlier like cross stroke stuff, when I start pushing off of her to try and recover, she starts getting opportunities for arm bars and stuff like that and triangles, right? So I'm really in a dangerous spot when my head gets too far forward. So I really don't want that to happen either. So one of the ways that we can stop people from pulling us forward is with our hips, all right? And this is like a really subtle thing that Hickson Gracie teaches a lot. And that's from our lineage, but I don't want to arch my back backwards. It's counterintuitive to puff my belly out and pull my shoulders back and try to pull back with my upper body. Because Michelle's legs are wrapped around my hips. She has control of my lower back. So if I'm pulling my upper back backwards and I'm not using my hands and she pulls in with her legs, she's gonna win every single time in that battle, okay? No matter how hard I pull back, if I pull back too far, obviously she's gonna sit up. But if I'm just pulling back with my hips and my shoulders, right? When she pulls in, she's gonna break me forward, especially if she has her hands. If she grabs my collar and does that, I can forget about having any kind of control over my own posture, okay? But what we can do is the exact opposite of what most people think is the right thing. Instead of arching my back and pulling my shoulders back, I'm actually gonna round my back and pull my hips up towards the ceiling. So I'm like doing like a hip thrust upwards, and I'm doing an ab crunch, and I'm trying to make myself into a little ball. Because now I'm pulling back exactly where she's trying to pull forward, so it's like opposing forces, right? So when she tries to pull, I'm much heavier here. Even when she uses her hands, it's very hard for her to pull forward, but if I round, it's totally different, okay? Now the combination of having my hips facing upwards, my abs crunched, and my shoulders coming down, the combination of that with my hands together, there's no chance of her breaking my posture forward, okay? Until she clears my hands off her belly and then potentially forces me to arch my back, right? So it's important when we're in this position, I'm not arching and pulling back, I'm actually crunching, using my frames on her ribs, on her hips. I can grab the lapels, I can grab both lapels with one hand. There's lots of different ways we can use our hands, but I'm using my hands to support myself from not falling forward, okay? That's very important. If you have your hands on the belt or something like this and your elbows are exposed, and she tries to open my elbows like wings and pull forward, it's gonna be really hard for her if I'm arching my back, if I'm rounding my back, I should say. All right, so that's kind of the first thing. It's very subtle, so I want you guys to play around with it, but if you get good at that, it's very, very hard for people to break you forward, okay? Now for our first opening, it's called the Violator opening. Probably this one and the next one we're gonna do tonight are probably the most two popular and commonly used guard openings in jiu-jitsu and competition jiu-jitsu, especially at the black belt level. They're both very, very high percentage, so we're gonna teach those two first, okay? So let's just pretend for a moment that Michelle did break my posture forward and got my head next to her head. All right, the one way that I can escape this position successfully is by getting my head away from her head. And I don't mean this way. If I can sink down towards her belly, that's my best opportunity. So what I'm gonna do is try to start putting my hands inside of her armpits and pulling my hips down back to my feet and sinking low, okay? I have to watch out for my arms being away from my hips and stuff like that still. Obviously that's a problem. But I'm trying to pull myself back and bring my elbows in, but I wanna have my head down here by her belly button, not by her head, okay? So if you ever find yourself in a position where someone's holding you forward like this, your job is to push off them and get down, okay? It's not to get up. Getting up is super hard, right? And it's gonna burn a lot of energy and actually hurts my neck. It's not fun at all. But if I can push, I can get down here where I'm safe, all right? There's always dangers, there's always fear of arm bars and stuff like that if my elbows are exposed. There's a slight chance of her maybe getting a good choke grip in, right? If I'm looking up like this, right? She might be able to start working a choke or maybe a loop choke or something like that, right? So when you're back here, I recommend turning your head to the side and putting your ear on the belly button or like on the belt knot. Because then what happens, even if she gets a good grip on your collar, go ahead. Yeah, even if she gets one grip, she's not gonna get a second grip, okay? Because it's just not really possible. My head's in the way, I'm too far away. She needs me a little bit higher to finish that choke, okay? So that's our first step, is to get ourselves down. So if she's not breaking my posture, I can do that by myself with a couple different grips. There's three really common grips for this opening. Number one is the C grip, okay? I just make a C, and I'm gonna put that deep in her armpits, okay? And I'm holding her biceps, so her elbows are exposed and they're away, and she can't reach my neck, and it's hard for her to reach my arms. She might be able to reach my sleeves and get a grip or something like that, and I do have to be careful if she starts doing that, but that's all she's gonna be able to reach anything. It's hard for her to get any kind of grip or circle her hands inside or outside and swim. So I have a pretty good length here. The reason why this one's a little bit better than the last one is because when I make a C, my arm is only this long and it stops right here. But when I make a fist, I just gained about 2 or 3 extra inches on my arm, which could mean a huge dramatic difference if the person's taller than you, right? And then the next grip that's really powerful, probably the best one, and people really don't like a lot, is if I grab the collars up by her collarbones, and then I'm gonna pull all the slack out from behind her neck and lift the neck off the mat, right? And then punch these grips into the armpit, okay? Because now what happens is it's pulling up behind her neck, it's punching these lapels into the armpit, and then the more she tries to reach her hands in, you'll see she doesn't have hardly any range of motion, and the lapels start digging into those arteries on the arms, and it's just very uncomfortable. Okay, it's not a very pleasant grip to have. So any one of those grips is fine. I'm just gonna punch the armpits for now. So once I have that control, and I'm in there nice and tight, and she can't reach my neck and she can't reach my arms very well, I pinch my elbows in tight, I lock my arms out straight, and I drop my head down into her belly button. So now my next goal is to make as much space between her hips and my hips. So I'm gonna inch my way back with my legs as far as I can. If you're lucky, the other person's gonna bring their legs up high on your back, because it just feels natural for them. It's easier for you to lock up high on the back than it is low in this position. There's less tension on the ankles, but I want that, right? So as I'm moving back, I like to walk back until my knees and like hamstrings and stuff are like about 90 degrees, like a 90-degree angle off the mat. And then once I get here, I'm gonna pop up into like a downward dog type pose, straight up. And then I walk forward, however many steps it takes. If it's 1, that's great. If it's 20 steps, that's fine. But I'm gonna walk forward far enough so that my foot is directly under her spine, and my heel is flat on the mat, and my knee is pointing right into this little hole right here. And I tuck my thigh up against my chest. Now all I have to do is tuck this foot underneath me and sit back into a combat base. Pinch my elbows back, the guard opens, ankles are unlocked, and I would immediately start pushing this leg down, start looking for some kind of a pass, push this knee down, start looking for some kind of a pass. But once the guard's open, right, now I'm in a position where I can start to pass. Steady again. So we're gonna start close guard. So let's pretend Michelle broke my posture forward, right? She gets me here. So I'm keeping my elbows safe by pinching them in, pushing on those armpits. And I push myself down, fighting for the inside grips on the armpits, extending away, turning my head to the side, walking backwards. So my legs are like 90 degrees or so. Try not to start this when your knees are bent too much, because you're not going to be able to make enough gap between your hips and their hips. I really want to stretch out as much as I can. So I pop up, right? Take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many steps it takes. Get that heel flat. This heel has to be flat for this to be effective. Okay? And I just tuck my foot under, sit down, and as I'm sitting down, I can let go of these grips, push on her body, push on her hips, pinch my elbows back, whatever's comfortable, and then I get into a combat base, and I'm ready to pass. So we're starting here, close guard, keeping myself low, rounding my back, not letting her pull me forward and break my posture and get control. Get my armpit grips, easiest grips to find, huge pockets right in the armpits. Pulling myself away, okay? If I try to just jump up and do this right here, my knees are way too long and it'll never fit in that hole, and you gotta make more space, right? So I back up, and I wanna feel her thighs and my armpits. That's how you know you've gone back far enough. Then I can pop straight up, walk forward. If my heel is off the mat, my knee is gonna spike right into her tailbone, and when I go down, this is gonna happen. I see that happen all the time, okay? So try to get that heel flat on the mat. Extend yourself back, walk up, big step, all the way in. Get that heel flat. Step as deep as you can. You should feel the knee right inside that hole. Pinch your elbows back, drop down to combat base, guards open, get ready to start passing, okay? Any questions on that stuff? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. All right, so next one. So this is gonna be very similar to the last one. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but if you're the taller person, sometimes the Violator can be really difficult. All right, the reason why it's called the Violator, if you didn't pick it up by this point, is because your knee is basically in your shin, is going right into the person's taint, and it can be really uncomfortable, right? So it's not exactly the most pleasant thing if you're on the bottom receiving that, so most people are just gonna let go and open up. But if you're a lot taller than your opponent, sometimes it's hard for you to get your knee in that spot. Your femur is just too long and it mechanically just doesn't really work very well. So if you're shorter, I highly recommend getting used to the Violator and using it a lot because it's really, really powerful. So the next one we're gonna do is another kind of variation of the last one. We call it the shelf. Again, it's really, really popular. I see this one a lot, especially in Nogi. This is like these two are really, I think, I see these more than anything else. We go to a lot of tournaments, see a lot of high-level guys, and this is these are the two biggest ones I see. So I'm gonna start the exact same way, whether I use the lapels, which I think is the strongest, or these grips here in the pocket. It's really important to understand that you're not free from danger in this position. Just because you're low and your head's to the side and they can't really choke you that easily, if your elbows aren't tight to your body and your arms aren't pretty straight, if your grips are loose and the person has a lot of mobility and range of motion in their arms, they can open your elbows to like break you forward like before, or even worse than that, if she's able to swim her arms to the inside, this could get real ugly really fast with arm bars and stuff like that, arm drags, just all sorts of really not fun things for me on top that I have to defend. So if you're grabbing like really low on the armpits, right, and you're not doing a good job keeping their arms exposed, you're gonna have a bad time, right? So really, when you get any of these grips, I highly recommend grabbing up in front of the shoulders, pulling and tucking down, because now when Michelle tries to scoop to the inside, she doesn't have nearly enough range of motion to do that, and my elbows are like hugging tight to her hips the whole time. So the shelf works like this. I'm gonna start exactly the same way. Posture's down, my head's to the side. I'm gonna walk my hips back just like before, except this time, instead of putting one knee right in the middle of her spine, I'm gonna put both knees kind of close together, like right in the middle of her butt. All right, so I'm gonna pop up, walk in. I wanna get in real close, both heels on the ground, and I put both knees right, it should be like right about the bottom of the butt. It could be really anywhere, however long your body is. But once I get here, I'm gonna kind of sit down like I'm sitting in a chair, and I'm gonna use her weight to counterbalance me and keep myself up. But this puts a lot of pressure on her spine, puts tons of pressure on her ankles, knees, it's really uncomfortable, and I can grab onto the pants, right? And you'll see the guard will eventually pop open. Now all I have to do is step back, put one knee in the middle, get my elbows to the inside, and I'm ready to start passing right away, right? So it's the shelf, because I'm basically being a shelf under her butt to support her hips. But it's important you don't sit back too far, because this person might open their guard before you're ready for them to do that. And if you're sitting back too far, you're just gonna fall backwards on your butt, and they might sweep and come to the top. So you gotta be ready for them to open up so that you don't fall over. So I back up, get as far back as I can, right? Pop up, put both feet in, and then sit. I'm pinching back with my elbows to put pressure on the knees. It's very uncomfortable. I can grab the belt, I can grab the pants, whatever I need to, right? Keep that pressure. Once that guard opens, immediately I'm gonna back up, drive my knee to the middle, and get my elbows to the inside, right? When you're in somebody's open guard, it's really important their knees aren't on the inside of your arms like this, because now they're gonna be able to potentially spider guard, stuff like that. Just, they have a lot of control over your arms in this position. It's better for you to have your arms on the inside wherever your grips are, because now I control her knees going outwards. I can put lots of pressure on her groin, make her stretch, and start to pin down with my legs. Whereas if I'm here, I don't have that luxury. I can't get my knee in the middle anymore, and she's able to kind of do what she wants to do. So she's in the driver's seat from that position, and I am not. So it's definitely better to have your arms on the inside. One more time. All right, just like before. Pick your grips, punch, really secure these arms and make sure they can't swim inside of your elbows. Walk it back, right? Pop up, both feet right in the middle, make that shelf, put that pressure on. This might take 4 minutes for the guard to open, but I promise you it's gonna open. This is not comfortable for her. It's really hard for her to sit up. She's carrying a lot of weight, okay? But if I go down too low and I don't have the balance, like I've seen people fall back like this is not good for me. She's gonna sit up. And now I'm on the bottom, okay? If you have the balance and the flexibility, like a Mikey or somebody like that, you can do that. Just make sure you have that under control and you drill this a lot. Otherwise you're gonna fall over. So find that sweet spot where you don't fall. Okay, ready to pass. Okay, what's up?
Is there a situation where the double knee might be more necessary versus a single knee track?
Yeah, I mean, if you can fit the knee in, go ahead and just slide it in.
A common like defense to the Violator is to keep your hips like pushed up into the person's chest so it builds room for the Violator. Like you don't ever want to have lazy hips, so when he walks up, if my hips are sagging low, there's a hole. But most people will extend, they're like squeeze their glutes and like push their hips forward. then that raises,
I
it
can't
takes
get my
away
knee
the
in the middle.
hole for the violator, so then he puts his knees in my butt,
Yeah.
and then he can do the shelf instead.
But if she's lazy when I step up.
Yeah, then
like
there's a
now-
gap, then
now
you just
the
go
knee's
through the
there.
middle.
Good call. Great question.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Start rotation. We're gonna do a guard rotation tonight, so everyone gets a couple rounds of sparring in. So, do any of you guys do yoga in here at all? Anything about yoga? Yeah. So you'll notice like the Violator is 3 yoga poses really. Like you're starting in like either a puppy dog pose or a child's pose, and then you're popping up into like a downward dog, and then you're doing like a forward lunge down to your combat base. I mean, so if you guys that don't realize, like yoga can be really beneficial for jiu-jitsu because like being able to develop just the flexibility and balance to do that stuff with other person's body weight connected to you is actually really huge for jiu-jitsu. So if you don't do yoga, I recommend maybe giving it a try because it's helpful. And another thing, really fast, it doesn't matter how many steps it takes for the shelf, all right? For the Violator, you can do it in 1 step or multiple steps, whatever. I've done the shelf plenty of times by hopping back or coming up and then just hopping right into my shelf, right? So sometimes you want to be fast with it because the person realizes what you're doing, they're going to try and, they're probably going to open up their guard, get some grips, and maybe switch to like a spider guard or something to be proactive. But you don't have to have like a set number of steps. I want you guys to know it's just get to that position quickly and then exploit the guard and open it and pass it. Cool? All right. Well, great job tonight, everybody.